There are moments in baseball that you don't just watch. You feel them. Not in the box score. Not in the highlight reel. But somewhere deep in your chest, the kind of thing that makes you grab whoever is sitting next to you and say, "Did you just see that?" This was one of those moments. Shohei Ohtani had already delivered at the plate. Multiple hits. Clean, powerful, inevitable, the kind of at-bats that remind you why a whole stadium falls silent the moment he steps into the batter's box. But what happened after the hits, that's what no one was prepared for. He ran. Not jogged. Not coasted. He sprinted, full speed, every muscle engaged, the way a man runs when he has something to prove or everything to lose. And in that single moment, the opposing manager went quiet. The dugout froze. Freddie Freeman, a man who has shared a field with the best players on the planet, turned and watched with the expression of someone seeing something he hadn't quite seen before. Goosebumps spread through the stadium like a wave. Today, we're going inside that moment. What made it so extraordinary? Why did it shake the people closest to it? And what does it reveal about Shohei Ohtani that his statistics, as historic as they are, simply cannot capture? Let's set the scene properly, because context is everything. Ohtani had already logged multiple hits in the game. By any standard, his work at the plate was done. This is the point in the game where most elite hitters settle into their rhythm, conserve energy, stay sharp mentally, protect the body. There is a quiet, unspoken code in baseball: you give everything when you're batting, and you manage yourself everywhere else. Ohtani did not get that memo. Or rather, he got it, read it, and chose a different path entirely. When the moment came to run, he didn't calculate. He didn't pace himself. There was no visible cost-benefit analysis happening behind those calm, focused eyes. He simply ran, with the kind of explosive, full-commitment speed that you see from players fighting for their spot on the roster, not from a two-way superstar who already has a 10-year, $700 million contract in his back pocket. The reaction from the other side of the field told the whole story. The opposing manager, a man who has spent decades studying players, reading tendencies, preparing for every possible scenario, stood there speechless. When asked about it afterward, his words were simple but heavy with meaning: "That's not the kind of movement you see from a pitcher who's starting tomorrow." Think about what that sentence contains. A pitcher who is scheduled to start the very next day is supposed to be in a careful, protective mode. Arm care. Energy preservation. Mental preparation. The preparation for a starting pitcher begins not on the day of the game, but the day before, in how he walks, how he moves, how much he exerts himself. Every manager in baseball knows this. Every pitcher lives by it. And here was Ohtani, the man scheduled to take the mound in less than 24 hours, sprinting at full speed as if his life depended on it. Freddie Freeman has played alongside legends. He has been a teammate of elite athletes, shared clubhouses with future Hall of Famers, and competed against the best the sport has produced over multiple generations. He is not easily impressed. But something in Ohtani's sprint stopped him. Not the speed itself, though the speed was remarkable. What registered for Freeman was something harder to quantify. It was the intentionality of it. The complete, total, uncompromising commitment to a single moment that, on paper, didn't require that level of effort. This is the thing about Ohtani that gets lost in the conversation about his numbers. His batting average, his home run totals, his ERA, his strikeout rate, all of it is historically significant, all of it is worth discussing. But those numbers are the result. They are the outcome of something that happens long before the first pitch is thrown or the first swing is taken. What Freeman witnessed in that sprint was the cause. It was a glimpse behind the curtain, not at a highlight, but at a habit. Not at a performance, but at a standard. Ohtani wasn't sprinting for the camera. He wasn't sprinting to impress anyone in the stands or make a statement on social media. He was sprinting because that is simply what he does. Because, for him, half effort is not a category that exists. Shohei's spirit was trembling, one observer said afterward, and it was one of those phrases that sounds poetic until you realize it is also literally accurate. There is an energy that some athletes carry onto the field, a kind of visible intensity, a heat that radiates outward, and in that moment, running full speed when no one required it of him, Ohtani's spirit was on full display. The stadium felt it before they understood it. Here is the paradox of Shohei Ohtani that every close observer eventually wrestles with. He is the most electrifying player in baseball. And yet, everything he does is built on a foundation of almost stubborn, methodical discipline. The sprint was electric. But the sprint didn't come from emotion alone. It came from years of building a body and a mind that respond the same way whether the moment is big or small, watched or unwatched, high stakes or seemingly inconsequential. Those closest to him have described a man whose preparation is almost unsettling in its consistency. His approach to nutrition, not as a pleasure, but as a performance tool, is the stuff of teammate mythology. His pre-game routines carry a precision that borders on the scientific. He sleeps with the same intention he trains with. He eats with the same focus he pitches with. And all of that, every disciplined meal, every carefully structured training session, every early morning and every controlled recovery, feeds directly into a moment like that sprint. Because here's the truth, the body doesn't lie when the moment arrives. When the opportunity to run came, Ohtani's body did what years of preparation had trained it to do. It committed fully. It didn't hesitate. It didn't negotiate. It simply performed, at the highest level, in a moment that most players would have let slide. This is the real story of the sprint. Not the speed. Not the goosebumps. Not the opposing manager's speechless reaction or Freeman's look of quiet admiration. The real story is the 10,000 invisible moments, the controlled meals, the focused reps, the structured rest, that made that sprint not just possible, but inevitable. Let's return to that moment. The opposing manager, standing in the dugout, watching Ohtani run. That's not the kind of movement you see from a pitcher who's starting tomorrow. In baseball, managers talk about opponents constantly. They dissect them, analyze them, discuss their tendencies, their weaknesses, their tells. It is a profession built on preparation and information and strategic planning. A good manager has an answer for almost every situation, word, a thought, a plan. But silence? True silence, the kind that follows something you didn't expect and can't immediately categorize? That is rare. And what made the moment so striking for the manager wasn't just the physicality of the sprint. It was the timing of it. The context. The fact that Ohtani, preparing to pitch the very next day, chose not to protect himself in the way baseball convention demands, and looked completely, entirely at ease doing it. This is a level of conditioning that most baseball people have simply never encountered in one player. Two-way players exist in the game's history, but never quite like this. The physical demands of being an elite starter and an elite everyday hitter have traditionally been considered incompatible, not because athletes lack the desire, but because the body cannot typically sustain both at an elite level over the course of a long season. Ohtani has essentially rewritten that assumption. And that sprint, that full speed, nothing held back, tomorrow be damned sprint, is the living proof. The manager's silence was not confusion. It was recognition. It was the look of a professional who had just been shown something that forced him to update his understanding of what is possible. There's one more layer to this story that deserves attention. Moments like Ohtani's sprint don't just inspire awe. They create a kind of quiet pressure, a standard that raises the ceiling of what is expected from every player on the field. When a teammate watches Ohtani sprint at full speed the day before a start, something shifts. Not through any word spoken, not through any instruction given. Simply through the act of witnessing. Through the uncomfortable realization that the excuses that feel reasonable, saving energy, protecting the arm, managing the long season, simply don't apply to this man. Freeman's impression was visible on his face, but the real impact was internal. The internal question that every high-level athlete asks when they see someone operating at a level above them: what would I have to change to play at that standard? This is the gift that elite athletes give to those around them, not just entertainment, not just highlight reel moments, but a living, breathing, sprinting demonstration of what full commitment actually looks like. It doesn't look like motivation speeches. It doesn't look like locker room pep talks or pre-game rituals designed for cameras. It looks like a man, with a full contract, with a full game already behind him, with a start scheduled for the very next day, choosing to run at full speed when no one required it of him. Because his standard required it of him. Because every single time is the time that matters. Stadiums are full of extraordinary moments. Fans cheer great hits, great pitches, great catches. They celebrate what is supposed to be celebrated. But goosebumps are different. Goosebumps are involuntary. They happen before the brain can process, before you can decide whether something deserves that response or not. They are the body's way of telling you that something real just happened. Something that matters. The stadium got goosebumps watching Ohtani sprint. Not because of the speed. Because they felt, in that moment, the full weight of what it means to be truly committed to something. To not hold a single thing back. To be, in that moment, completely and entirely present, giving everything, protecting nothing, because the standard you've built inside yourself doesn't allow for anything less. That's what Shohei Ohtani's sprint was. That's what made the opposing manager go quiet. That's what stopped Freddie Freeman mid-thought. And that is why, long after the final score is forgotten and the box score is archived, people will remember the player who sprinted when he didn't have to. Because he always has to. That's just who he is.